a flash, and billions of other flashes. The universe is experiencing itself in form. It wants that. It wants to experience itself in billions of life forms, but it's all one totality of experience. And you are one cell in that totality. But it wants something else too. The universe not only wants to experience the outward movement, it also wants to know itself who or what it is beyond the form. There's the outward movement. Consciousness becomes this, that, and that, and that, and billions of forms. But consciousness also wants to know itself. It wants to lose itself in billions of forms in order to suffer and then know itself, its essential nature as timeless, formless, unlimited, eternal peace. And so, this is why we are here. Primarily, our gathering is not about the outward movement into form, because this has been going on for millions of years already. And the universe loved it. The dream of form, it dreamt the dream of form. The consciousness, the universe dreaming the dream of form, and then suddenly in the dream of form, the form sits there and hears the words, "This is the dream of form." And you are not the form, you just thought you were. You thought you had identified with every thought, identified with the short-lived body, identified with the story of me, all very short-lived. Interest. Who am I? Not this, not that. Who I am cannot be defined through form or through a word, but you can know it directly. You can know yourself as the timeless, eternal subject of all experience. Untouched by any happening or event. The eternal I amness that underlies all the manifestations. And then you can look at the manifestations and recognize yourself, the one, in every manifestation. You can recognize the essence of who you are in the flower. And you love it because you love yourself. Because you recognize yourself, and recognizing yourself is love. Because there's only the I. And then another human being. You recognize the essence of the other, not the story, not whatever your mind is saying of who the other is. None of that. You recognize the beingness, not through words, but through stillness. And at that moment, you recognize yourself in the other, and the sense of separation goes away that was created by excessive thinking. And there's love. So love is recognition of the one, recognizing yourself. And that is the transformation also of the dream. For a while then the dream becomes very pleasant, because within the dream of form, in which you continue to move as this body for a little while, within the dream of form, something else arises and shines through, and that is the recognition of that which underlies all form. I am. then the world of form loses its density and heaviness. And you experience the world, or your life, your so-called life, which isn't yours. You experience it very differently. It has a lightness to it. Light in both senses of this English word, light, which is lack of heaviness, but also the light of consciousness shining through the world of form, which you recognize. So the transformation of the world happens as your state of consciousness undergoes the transformation and the recognition happens. This is reflected in the universe around you, because they are really one. The universe that you inhabit reflects your predominant state of consciousness. And when you awaken to who you are beyond form, then the universe in which you still move as this form, the dream, reflects that recognition, which means it is no longer a threatening place. As long as you don't know yourself and you're totally identified with this form, psychological and physical, all other forms are basically threatening. And that's been the history of humanity, continuous fighting against collective threat. When we get together, that's us and that's them. And then you get the concept of the alien other. Another human being is then so alien, you conceptualize them through the head and make them so other that any kind of violence can be inflicted on them and you don't feel it and you don't sense it, because you've totally deadened yourself to the aliveness of the other through mental conceptualization, as you have deadened yourself to your own aliveness through mental conceptualization. So, and that goes, and then you experience the transformation of the world. There's more harmony. You no longer expect from the world what it cannot give you, which is yourself, which is peace, which is the recognition of the essence. Happiness, I don't even like that word, it sounds a little too superficial, it's deeper than that. You don't demand that the forms of this world, people or situations, should make you happy, and fear that they may not, might make you unhappy. So fear and expectation go away, that's good. And then you can experience the world of form and enjoy it, including other human beings, interaction with other human beings, because you're always meeting yourself. Isn't that wonderful? And you always look different in some other form. I appear in so many forms, it's so beautiful. I like to sit in cafes, sometimes I sit and drink a cup of coffee and just watch all the people that come in and get their latte or whatever it is, or they sit there and just watch, looking at myself appearing in so many forms, and there's no thought. What is there to think about? Anything the mind can say about one of these beings is ultimately an illusion. It's just judging the form. That's not the being. So being there as the space of consciousness at Starbucks, there's the space of consciousness, and there I'm looking at myself, drinking coffees, whatever they drink, It's beautiful, and every being is beautiful, no matter what they look like on the outside. When you're in touch with the beauty of being, the aliveness of being within yourself, then you can always look through the form and sense the beauty and the aliveness in the so-called other, which is no other. And then your life improves immeasurably because you don't create an insane world of conflict with others anymore, because there are no others. And then others love you because they recognize that something is there. They recognize themselves through you, but their mind may misinterpret it and say, oh, you are very special. The mind might even get attached to you and say, oh, I want to marry you. But that's the mind. But yes, people, of course, feel drawn to when they feel recognized in their essence. It's the most beautiful thing you can give to another, which is no other. When humans, they feel essentially when they meet you that you are recognizing them in their essence, and they're not being judged. And they can sense that unless the density is so much in their mind that they can't sense anything anymore, which is possible too, and that's fine. So they are not being judged, so you feel, most humans feel the only time they can relate to other beings and are not being judged is with little children before they start to speak, which means think. So, and that's why many people love looking at little babies, because the baby looks back at you and there's no judgment. The baby, of course, hasn't arrived at the thinking stage yet. We are not going back to the baby stage. We are stepping beyond the thinking stage. But the baby is still in that state of non-judgment, and the baby will look at you, and when you look at a baby, suddenly you feel good inside. Everybody here probably has experienced that. You look at the baby looks, there's a light shining through the eyes, and you look into the eyes of the baby, and the baby caves. And you know the baby is not judging you. And the same with a dog. You go. The dog comes up wagging its tail. It's so beautiful. He has no opinions. And immediately you love him for not judging you. And in a sense, recognizing you, because the dog has so much love, you just need to look at the dog, the tail starts wagging. The joy of life, just incredible. And the humans, they probably had it 10, 20,000 years ago, before the thinking stage started. The joy every moment of being alive, the playfulness. That's why it's so liberating to be with animals. Oh. But of course, no, we are not going back to this stage of a dog. That is beautiful for the dog. That's not for us. We are stepping beyond or rising above thinking. That's what presence is. And then, yes, there are some similarities between that state of having gone beyond thought and the stage of not having arrived at thought yet. There are certain similarities. Any being that has not arrived at thought yet is also more connected with the whole and supported by the whole than the thinking human, as expressed in mythology through the figure of the fool. in many ancient mythology, there is this figure of the fool who is a simpleton, and yet the fool is entrusted with tasks by the intelligence of the universe with that more so-called intelligent or developed humans could not do. You have it in The Lord of the Rings, for example, as a more recent mythological tale, where the Hobbit, a very simple person, all the others around the Hobbit are more intelligent, but only he can do that, perform that task. The universe uses the fool to perform this all-important task because the fool is more aligned with the totality. And of course, the same thing in Forrest Gump, the film. Again, you have the so-called the simpleton, and always the universe supports him. And there's no ego, there's never claiming it, I did that, I achieved that. The fool hasn't arrived at the ego stage yet. Normal humans, they are full of ego, full of mind, full of me, and so they are blocked. The universal consciousness finds it hard to use them. And then you go where we are going, beyond thought, where again you have the connectedness, and the universe supports you. It becomes, you experience life as not antagonistic anymore, but as helpful. Things happen, and then you don't need to do that much anymore. That's the amazing thing. It just, things happen, the movement, and you go with the movement. I was ready to retire last year. I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that much teaching anymore. And then the universe came and the phone rang and said, it's Oprah. I said, okay, it's not time to retire yet. And one can only look upon what's happening in amazement. What's going on? Wow. Am I doing it? No, of course I'm not doing it. Just an opening for it, as you are, an opening for consciousness to move through. That's what life wants of you. Of course, you're not separate, but when we use language, we always separate. Life wants consciousness to manifest into this world, the light. In the New Testament, Jesus says, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. You are the consciousness that illuminates the world. And that's, know yourself as that. And that's freedom, that's liberation, that's awakening. That's the end of suffering and madness. And it's happening right here, through this form. Well, that's something to be grateful for.